Hello, everyone, and welcome to Office Hours. I'm Jeff Blankenburg, and as always, I'm joined by Amanda.
Hi, Jeff. How's you doing today?
I am doing good. I'm in a good mood. The weather is beautiful outside. I feel like it's going to be a good day. We also have some cool guests. We're going to be talking about some smart home stuff. And as you know, I know you just moved into a new house, but I know in my house, I have enabled so many things with smart home devices and switches and plugs and all sorts of other stuff that I'm excited to talk with this team and see what they have to share.
Yeah, I actually hooked up a smart plug just outside my office with an on-air light so that when I'm actually broadcasting, it lights up. And then when I'm not on
That's awesome.
broadcasting, I can turn
We'll
it
have
down.
to talk about which one you have, because I've been thinking about doing that for a long time on the outside of my office,
Right.
so that my other family members know, like, hey, now's not the time to barge in.
Exactly.
All right. Well, before we do that, we have a couple of announcements. We've been doing a weekly skill quality coach insight, and this week I have one all about naming your skill. So there's a couple of things to know here. The first one is that your skill actually has two names. The what we call the public name, which is the name that you would see in like the Alexa skill store and in the app and things like that. And then we have your invocation name. And the invocation name is the thing that your users need to say in order to open your skill. So the tip that I have for you is, number one, make sure that your public name matches your invocation name. They should be the same so that when people want to open your skill, they know what to say. But beyond that, you also want to make sure that your skill name shouldn't be super generic, but it also shouldn't be super fancy. You want something that is easily memorized and usable. And I'll give you a couple of quick examples. There's a great adventure game called The Magic Door. And it opens with this loud creaking sound, and then you walk into this like adventure world, right? Imagine Zork, but on all sorts of steroids. And you can go all throughout the world, and you can make choices, and you can navigate through this. But every time you start the skill, you get that loud creaking door sound. And it's easy to remember that, oh yeah, I got to go through the magic door in order to get to that adventure. So that's one that I really like. Another example that I've built for myself is actually a skill called 3 Clues. Now, the original idea was that I wanted to give it something fancy, like it's a trivia game, and I give you 3 clues. So I thought something that uses like the try prefix. And I even thought something like by way of 3, right? Like a via try or something like that. It's a play on trivia. But what I found is all these fancy, clever names I was coming up with, none of them were memorable. None of them were easy for someone to say, oh yeah, I want to play that again. And so I ended up just calling it 3 Clues because it made a lot more sense to exactly what my skill did and made it easier for people to get back in. So that's my little tip for you today on the skill quality coach.
Thanks, Jeff.
Sure.
It's kind of a shame to lose that via tripod, but I do see where you're coming from with the memorability. Yeah. Last week, by the way, we had a great tech talk. We still have that on demand if you want to check it out on our YouTube channel. That was from our senior technical product manager, Mayatri Chobi, and our Alexa product marketing manager, Helen Hasman. And they were discussing updates to the developer console, how we make it easier and faster to build with Alexa. We're always trying to make the developer console easier and faster for you to use. It's a great talk. It's not super long. You can slip it in on your lunch break, and it's really cool to see. So check that out on our YouTube.
Totally agree. I was really impressed. So I work with Helen quite a bit. But I don't get to see her on camera that often. And so she did a fantastic job. It was a really good conversation. All right, now it's time to bring our guests on. So I have Brittany and Sharang from our smart home team. And I always like fumble over introducing people. So I'd always prefer you guys introduce yourselves instead. So Brittany, do you want to start? Introduce yourself?
Yeah, I can. Hi, I'm a senior technical product manager on the smart home lighting and appliances team. So what that really means is I obsess about how to help customers control and automate the devices in their home. So that includes their lights, that includes their coffee pot, it includes your washing machine, any of those things. So that's what we take a look at here.
Cool. And how about you, Sharang?
Sure. I'm a senior product manager on the certifications team. It's a team within Smart Home. And our most adopted, most recognized certification is the Works with Alexa certification.
Oh.
And on that team, we build products and tools to really make the integration of all of these smart home devices with Alexa a lot better.
Very cool. I actually wanted to give folks an example. They may not be aware of the Works with Alexa program or what that even means. And so while we were running the audio here at the beginning, I actually grabbed something off of my shelf I have here in my house. This is a Wemo smart plug. If I can get that focused, maybe. I use these. I use the Amazon ones. There's another company called Govee. I use lots of smart plugs in my house. But you can see down at the bottom, it has some badges. And one of them says works with Alexa, the one there in the center. This is the program that you're talking about, right, Sharon?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. So as we think about that and that program, what is the value that device developers and manufacturers, what do they get out of certifying their products with Alexa?
There's quite a few, actually. So our customers really know what the program stands for, and oftentimes they write to us in customer reviews and in customer contact calls where they're saying things like, you know what, I really purchased this device just because it said it works with Alexa. So they know that it stands for Amazon's sort of stamp of quality, where we're saying, you know what, we've tested this product and the integration with Alexa is seamless. It really does work with Alexa. Another reason is if you're looking to sell products on Amazon.com, it's a lot easier to find Works with Alexa products. There's a little filter in Amazon search where you can filter out non-certified products, and customers often do that. There's also a dedicated storefront for Works with Alexa certified products, and only the WWA certified products are sort of highlighted in that storefront. So it's a lot easier to find products, and if you intend to sell on Amazon.com, I would highly recommend looking into the certification.
Yeah, so this functions as a consumer confidence booster, right? Because and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I assume it's possible for me to make a smart home device that does work with Alexa, but has not gone through the certification process, right?
It is correct, but at the same time, we build Alexa, so we have product specialists who are writing these test cases for us, for our program, and we're able to test the integration at a much higher sort of confidence level, as opposed to devices that have not gone through that certification.
Excellent.
And how does your program maintain that high quality bar for those products?
It's an interesting question. So the way it works is when device makers, let's take Philips, when Philips is building a light bulb and it's gone through the building, the manufacturing, the packaging process, they'll ship the light bulb to us. And we've actually got human testers that unbox the light bulb and that test multiple scenarios on the light bulb. So a scenario is basically an interaction that an end customer will have with their smart home devices. So an example of a scenario could be, Alexa, turn on the lamp, and observing whether the lamp turns on or not. And on average, for a device like a light bulb, there's between 60 and 100 different scenarios that testers will manually test. And that allows us to maintain a high quality bar. If any one of those 100 scenarios fails, we write back to the developer saying, you know what, this failed, here's why, go figure it out. And the developer will then work with an engineering team to put in a fix and then resubmit the product to us.
Got it. So you're saying that there are people employed by Amazon today, and their job is to sit around and play with smart home devices all day and make sure that they work properly? Are you hiring? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's an awesome job. I just visited, so I'm in the day one building. There's a test lab on the 21st floor. It's got so many devices. It's got like TVs and vacuums and all sorts of smart home devices. It's really cool.
So cool. Yeah, I know we also have our smart home lab, which is in day one, I believe, right? It's up on 22 or 20. No, it's higher than that. But it's built like an apartment, right? And so you have all sorts of devices roaming through there, vacuums and robots and lots of kitchen appliances and things like that. It's always mind blowing to see the work that goes into making that place function, because it has a full bedroom and bathroom. I remember the first time I went in there was a big sign, because it has a toilet that flushes with an Alexa command. It has a shower that turns on with Alexa command.
Oh my gosh.
And while it all works, there's big signs over the toilet that says, please don't actually use this toilet for good reason, right? This is meant to be for demonstration purposes. They don't want to have to like worry about cleaning those regularly.
Don't actually use the toilet. Oh my goodness.
I
imagine it's tricky to get all those different devices like, interoperable. I feel like you'd be talking to one device and the other device would overhear you. A lot of conversations to be had with those devices.
Oh, for sure. All right. So now that I'm looking for an opportunity to get on this team, what does this certification process look like? I mean, I got to imagine from the time that I've built my prototype hardware and I send that into you, there's got to be some amount of time that all of this takes. You're not flipping it around like an Alexa skill where I can get certified in a day. So what does this process look like for manufacturers?
Right. So it typically takes about 30 days for us to test and certify the device. But since, again, it's a manual process where we've got actual people running through these different scenarios and interactions, it can take up to 2 months because of our backlog. In any given month, we may have more devices than other months. So I would recommend folks to start the certification process at least 2 months out, 2 months before the launch date. And the way it works is first step, they would have to go to the Alexa certification console. It's a whole separate console from the developer console, which is a skill-focused console. So I would recommend folks to start with that and create a product profile for their product. And this is where you basically tell us about how your product integrates with Alexa, what technical implementations you've implemented in your product, things like that. And then create what we call a certification request. A certification request is essentially the developer telling us, hey, you know what, we want you to certify our device in so-and-so country or so-and-so locale. We cannot, with good conscience, say that once we've tested the device, it'll work just as well in the US as it would in, let's say, Japan or in Europe. So we've divided the globe in different locales, and each locale has its own certification. And when developers indicate which locale they would like to be certified for, then they'll ship the device to us for testing. We'll test it. We'll hopefully pass all test cases. If it doesn't, we'll ask the developer to fix stuff and then offer the badge.
Got it.
Huh.
And so you're saying that if I'm an international hardware manufacturer and I want my devices available everywhere, if I want to put this same box, this same product across shelves across many different countries, I have to go through the certification process for each of the individual locales, right?
Correct. There are language parameters that change between, let's say, North America versus Europe versus Far East. So there are slightly different certification requirements for every locale. But we try to reduce testing overhead as much as possible. So we're not going to ask you to undergo the same number of tests if you've already completed testing in let's say, North America. We're only going to test for stuff that is separate, that is different, that is net new for that particular locale. So we try to we try to remove overhead as much as possible.
Got it. I have so many more questions, and Brittany, I want to lean into your knowledge based on your introduction as well. I mean, if I'm making something like a smart plug or a light bulb, that seems pretty easy. Like I could just send you a few boxes of light bulbs and make sure you guys can test those appropriately. But like for something like a washing machine, are they sending you and shipping you like on a pallet a whole washing machine to test and then doing that for each of the locales? Is that still the same process?
Yeah, the process will really vary depending on the device. So in some cases, the device doesn't need to be in place, but the test cases that apply will still be very comprehensive.
Got it.
Jeff, I hadn't even considered a washing machine.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, there's a number of devices that I've seen. There's one. I don't know if this one works with Alexa, so I apologize if it's not. But there's a company actually based out of Hawaii that makes a smart fuse box for your house, and the idea that I can individually turn on and off individual fuses in my house, or have it recognize that like, hey, there's a lot of draw in this room, but there's no one home. I should turn that circuit off. Those kinds of things are big and impactful and like complicated, right? There's a lot going on there.
I guess that makes for a good question. What kind of devices can be certified for Works with Alexa, and what are some of the cooler devices you've seen?
We've got 34,000 certified devices right now, so there's a ton. Essentially, any device that integrates with Alexa is qualified for certification. Most popular ones are obviously lighting type devices, so light bulbs, plugs, switches. I haven't heard about fuse boxes, but I'll look into that. But television, speakers, there's a whole host. There's a link to the developer documentation, I believe, that's been shared. I would go to that link and I would look at the whole list of devices. But essentially, if it's a smart home device, we've got you covered.
Got it. I mean, when we think about smart home devices, though, we think of the traditional stuff, light bulbs and even things like washers and dryers. I could see that. Is there anything that stands out to you as like, hey, we've certified this and it works awesome, but it's kind of a weird entry into the smart home space? And I don't mean to use weird in a derogatory term, just something that doesn't fit the normal mold.
Not off the top of my head. Most of the devices we certify are fairly typical, like even vacuums, for instance.
Yeah.
I would certify. I would classify that as a typical device. Not that I can recall it right now.
No, that's okay. I like the weird edge cases sometimes, so I tend to ask those questions. I can't even think of what a weird edge case would be. I know that I've even seen things like there's been some like toys, like stuffed animals and stuff that are controllable.
What about garden sprinklers? That'd be a good one, right?
Yeah.
You should water your plants while you're out of the house.
I do have one on my house that is it's a sprinkler controller, so not like an individual one sprinkler that you run from a hose, but like an irrigation system you have on your house. The controller for your irrigation system, there's a number of those I think that we've sold.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I just moved, so I'm always looking for ways to expand what I'm doing with the house right now. Right now, we're pretty conservative in how much smart stuff we have, but I know it's going to grow more over time.
One rule I will offer you and anybody else that's watching is that it's very easy to say, oh, we should do this. But man, if we want to do it right, we need 37 of those things or whatever. And you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, that's going to cost us $5,000. What I recommend is set yourself a very modest budget. Maybe it's $100 a month, and say, we're going to do whatever we can do every month for $100. And so maybe that's replacing a few light switches or whatever. And you'll find by the end of the year, all of a sudden you're like, wow, it's all here. But you have to have some patience. Or you have to have a big bank account, one or the other. This stuff can certainly add up as you're getting into it. All right, guys, we actually have a number of conversations happening in Slack, not in Slack, in chat. And so I'd love to get into a few of those. I see we've got a few folks here, Hawk 2000 and Brian Tarbox, Prisoner 4044, and Abratabia. I don't think I've seen your name before, but welcome. There's going to be a few questions, I think, as we get into this. That are going to be framed more as feedback for your team than they are necessarily a question that you can answer. But I'd love to ask them anyway, and then we can make sure that we're capturing this or routing this to the right teams as we get into it. So the first one I saw came from Brian Tarbox, and he wanted to know if there's a way to put a permanent limit on the volume of a device. So this would be any kind of smart speaker, whether that's something that we build or something that someone else builds. But he said he has 18 Echo Dots in his house. And he said that there's one of them that regularly sets its volume to 10, but not because he's choosing to have that happen. It just happens to set itself to volume 10. And if you've ever used one of our Echoes and set the volume to 10, it is now too loud to talk to it to be able to tell it to go to volume 7 or 5 or whatever. So you have to manually go over and handle that. So I think the feedback that he's providing is, man, I wish there was a way for me to say, I never want this device to go over 7 or 3 or whatever. I am assuming there is not currently a mechanism in place to allow things like that.
I don't think so, no. But
I'm
feedback. I'll take that back. Yeah.
This one might apply though to stuff you guys have at least encountered or thought about. His other question was years ago he had to change his router and his password for his Wi-Fi network. Well, most of the devices that we use when we think about smart home are connected to that Wi-Fi network. Do we have any mechanisms in place, or has the experience improved, I guess is the question he's asking, around having to reset or reconfigure the dozens or hundreds of devices that might be in your house to reset broadly across all of the devices in my house to be able to reset things like Wi-Fi usernames and passwords?
I'm not the right person for this question.
And that's okay if you're not.
That's okay.
But those kinds of things are dramatically impactful. I know that I've replaced my router a couple of times in the 7 years I've been at Amazon. And each time I've been very deliberate about making sure I have the same network name, I have the same password, so all the devices can continue to find it. And the ones that fail, most of them, I just have to cut the power to them. And that's enough to get them to check back in and reset. But that's okay that you guys don't have those answers. I just thought it was interesting to talk about those.
It's tough. I hooked up 2 more game consoles this weekend, and you got to type in the password on the little game console device, and it's kind of a pain in the neck.
Yeah, actually, I found something awesome about old game consoles. So I just redid my basement, Brittany and Strong, and I hooked up all of the old video game consoles that I have. So NES and Super Nintendo and N64 and all of those. And the ones that had a dedicated power switch that you actually had to physically move, it turns out I can hook those up to a smart plug and then just never turn the switch off. And so then I can just say, like, turn on the N64. And all my friends were like, how could that even work, right? Because in their heads, it's like this old device that's not possible. But all I'm really doing is it's a light switch. But that kind of stuff goes a long way in being able to turn those consoles on, and then the TV recognizes the new input, so it flips to the right. It's pretty seamless. It's really nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah. A couple of other recommendations just in the conversations that I'm seeing here. Do we support stoves? I think we do. I think, Brittany, you may have even mentioned that earlier. But does it have the ability to turn individual burners on or off after a specific amount of time?
Typically, again, this will depend on the device, but a lot of devices do have safety standards that actually will not allow voice control for activities that really would require that someone's there and monitoring it. So I suspect that that's not a typical use case.
Well, the turning on, certainly not. But what about if this has been on for more than 20 minutes, turn it off?
Yeah. I'm not aware of any that have implemented that today, but that's a great safety use case as well. So
I'd imagine there's some risks associated with like a smart oven, for example. Like if you couldn't figure out how to turn it off, you'd probably be in trouble. So you want to be sure those devices are all safe to use.
Yeah.
Right.
Another question that just came in is around the idea of smart blinds for windows and how they integrate with other systems like heating and cooling to manage the temperature of a house as a whole unit. And it reminds me of the time that I investigated getting into the smart blinds game. So in the room next to me here, the ceilings are about 20 feet tall with some really nice windows that are up high. But there are times during the day where you want to be able to watch television and the sunlight is just pouring in through those high windows. And so it puts all sorts of sunlight across the TV. And I was like, oh, smart blinds would be perfect there. The problem is that most houses are not equipped to have power outlets where you would put smart blinds, right? That's not a thing that really exists. Yeah. And so I'm not looking for you guys to answer the question about smart blinds. I'll figure that out on my own eventually through some magic of batteries. But the question that leads me to then is there a set of guidelines or best practices or recommendations for how smart home devices should consider building their stuff? So I'll give you a quick example. There are lots of outdoor smart cameras that exist today, right? That allow me to notify when something walks through my backyard or that someone's at my front door. And there are battery powered ones and there are fully powered ones. And there are solar powered. There's all sorts of different powering options. Do we offer anything beyond certification? Do we work with these manufacturers to also recommend, like, hey, I see the direction you're going with this, but if you built this with a solar panel, it would have more success or be more reliable to customers? Because I tend to find things that, especially if they take throwaway batteries like AA's, AAA's, I will avoid that product at all costs because I don't want to burn through the batteries. I don't want to burn through the cost of the batteries. Do we offer those kinds of programs to smart home manufacturers as well?
We have a solutions team that works closely with partners for certification and sometimes even for development. So that team can actually give this feedback back to partners and influence development. So that's a pipeline that we do have open. Nice. It's not a program that we run, but it's like an ad hoc recommendation or advice that we can give back.
It's a service that manufacturers can request if needed.
Yes.
Yeah. Got it. That's good. All right. The next question actually comes from Mahedi Hassan on YouTube. This is not actually for you guys, so you can take just a quick breather. They were asking how certification testing works for Alexa Conversations dialogue. So what we're talking about is the Alexa Conversations model that people can use inside custom Alexa skills. They said they're familiar with the intent stuff, and they can use both the dialogue model and the intent request at the same time while developing a skill. So there's a couple of questions in here, Mahedi, and I want to make sure that I address them. The first one is, how does the certification test work for Alexa Conversations? The recommendation still here is, as always, anytime you're pushing a skill through certification, our recommendation is always in your testing guidelines. There's a notes for testers in your certification data. I always recommend putting in there sample conversations that you recommend that the testers try. Sample utterances, things that you expect them to try as they go through the process. This also becomes super important when you're selling products. They're going to want to be able to test to make sure, excuse me, that every product works appropriately. And so making it easy for them to find or interact with those products goes a long way in speeding up your testing and making their lives a lot easier. But your following question is then, can I use both dialogue model and the intent request at the same time? You can. So you can actually send different directives that say, hey, I'm using Alexa conversations right now, but I want to hand this off to the intent model, and you can do that. And then there's another directive that passes it back in. And these dialogue directives allow you to move between the two. So you can have segments of your skill that are specifically around Alexa conversations and segments of your skill that makes a lot more sense to use the traditional interaction model. I don't have that documentation ready for me on hand, but you should be able to find that pretty easily in our technical documentation. So Brian Tarbox, I haven't actually followed this link. He said
I did. It's a link to a smart stove knob that has the Work with Alexa certification. So
Nice.
we do have stove knobs out there that are certified Work with Alexa. It's very interesting. If you check out the link, it's omekitchen.com. omekitchen.com. I think it's just the knob. So you have to buy the smart knob, and then you have to.
So this isn't a stove. This is a knob that can turn itself on and off.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Wow.
But
That is not an inexpensive.
Works with Alexa item. Yeah.
Boy, that's very interesting. I'm gonna have to dig into this. I have to imagine, based on the picture that I'm seeing, that it must have some gears or wheels or something that it drives. This is another probably battery powered accessory, but that's pretty cool. All right.
Sinjit Engineering hinges. Yeah, it does actually work on the stove.
Oh, man, I'm gonna have to drink some water here. Gavin Watson said he's gonna have to set an Alexa reminder for this. He keeps forgetting that he's in the UK. They haven't gotten to daylight savings yet, and so there's this weird time offset where they're at a different time than they're used to.
Yeah, I mentioned in the Slack that whenever I said was 10 o'clock my time, so I said 2 hours from now in case people still hadn't had the time change, because I know it does sometimes change. I think it syncs up next week though, if I'm right.
Yeah. I think it's they do it like at the beginning of April-ish, where we're a bit earlier. All right, so Brittany and Sharang, I would love to know, as you've gone through this process and you've looked at a lot of the devices that have come out, what are some of the coolest applications of devices that work with Alexa that you've seen? Things that you're like, man, I wish I could get that in my house, whether or not you actually did.
Do you want to go ahead, Sharang? Sure. Well, I'm going to give a plug for a device that we'll talk about in a little bit, which is the remote dimmer switch from Philips Hue, where you can effectively kind of control how you'll use it with any of your devices in your house. So it really extends what you can do by creating your own automation. So I know we'll talk about it in a little bit, but I think the ability to create those types of routines with any button press is pretty awesome. So that's the one that I'm obsessing about at the moment.
That's pretty cool.
I've got a pretty simple one. It's not a weird edge case, but I love to cook. So something like a smart oven would be super helpful. I can just turn it on to preheat from wherever and then get home and just start cooking right away.
Yeah, that's where, as you know, Brittany, as you were mentioning, the idea of routines and kind of composing these things together, I think that's where a lot of the real power of smart home comes from. I think, I've given some talks on what I call the future of people. And the whole vision of this is what does it look like when Alexa has all of my necessary context and all of my smart home devices are easily managed and integrated into what I'm going to call that digital assistant, right? Think of like having a real human personal assistant and what that really means. A good example is if you had a real human assistant, I don't know that any of us are fancy enough for that, but let's pretend for a moment that we do. You could say, hey, I need some coffee. Could you please get me some coffee? And that human assistant could go get you your coffee. Now, you didn't need to tell them how you like your coffee. They already know that stuff. And a really good assistant wouldn't wait for me to ask, right? They would be like, hey, time for coffee. I know you get coffee every day at 8:30 or whatever it is, right? And as we start to translate those kinds of experiences across Alexa and the AI behind it and smart home, as you were talking, Sharang, about your oven idea, I mean, it seems to me that if I already know what I was...
Here's what I found.
Alexa, stop. It seems to me that it would be much easier to have it recognize that, like, hey, Sharang is 15 minutes away from home. I'm going to start the oven preheating. You don't make the choice. The device has enough contextual awareness to say, he's on his way home. I know it's time for dinner. He's making this. He's going to need that at 4:25. I'm going to make sure that that is ready to go by the time that you walk in the house. My wife actually has that in place. So I've been working from home since 2007. And so for years, she's had this function specifically available, which is she's out with the kids or doing whatever it is. And she's like, hey, can you preheat the oven? I'm on my way home. It would be nice to be able to have these devices do it themselves rather than just calling me. But I think that that's a good example of how we hope the future of all of these devices playing together and thinking about how the house can take care of you rather than you constantly taking care of the house can go a long way.
Jeff, so you're saying you're the smart oven. She calls you.
I don't know that I'd use the word smart, but yeah, I do. Yeah, that's very good. Well, you know what? I know that we had kind of predefined a set of topics and conversations that we wanted to get into, but I feel like I have gotten to the end of that list. So, Brittany, were there other topics that you wanted to get into here today?
Oh, yeah. So we have recently introduced a simple event source API. So wanted to be able to take some time and kind of introduce it and talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, let's do that. So is this already public and available for hardware manufacturers?
It is. I can describe a little bit of what it is and then give you some context. So the Simple Event Source API is a new capability that we've introduced for smart home devices. It allows you to publish events to Alexa, which can act as routine triggers effectively. So an event can be any stateless transition. So if you think about a state of a garage door as the garage is open or the garage is closed, a transition might be the garage is starting to open, for example. So you can publish those to Alexa, and then customers can use that trigger to initiate routines. So you think about the scenario where your wife gets home, opens the garage door, and the oven starts preheating, for example. So you can identify which actions you want to take, and customers can configure those for themselves. I also liked your example earlier of, I turn on the TV. So maybe when you turn on the TV, you can program the shades to close at the same time. And so really this just allows skill developers to create custom events that maybe aren't already available as triggers and to publish them to kind of add to the scope of what you can do with those devices.
Very cool. Yeah, I think anything that lends itself towards the composition of these services it goes a long way. So is there I don't know that I have a URL for this, but is there a place that people can find this or dig in deeper if they want to find out more?
Yeah, I can share a link offline to the documentation.
Great. Yeah, if you'll drop it in the private chat, we can have our team share that out. That's great. Very cool.
Very nice. Yeah, we got another +1 for the smart blinds, smart shades.
Yeah,
seems like a really good idea. Yeah, because I know that on my old TV room, not so much with my new TV, but I have a new smart TV, but in my old TV room, I would always get a lot of glare if I didn't have a shade drawn on the TV. So the TV said automatically do that. Very much.
Yeah, there was also Gavin Watson mentioned that if there's a device that can sense when he needs coffee and bring it to him as he likes it, he will give it all of his money. It doesn't matter what that is. I imagine that you could probably come up with some combination of an automatic coffee maker, espresso maker, whatever it is, combined with maybe an Astro robot, right? Where it pulls into a station and the cup drops into Astro's cup holder, and then it pours the coffee into the cup, and then Astro drives it. I don't know. That seems like it could be challenging, but Gavin Watson said, talking of robots, what happened to Astro? I don't think anything has happened. In fact, I just got a notification that I just got an invitation to purchase one. Now I don't have an extra. I think they're $1,000. I don't have an extra $1,000 right now to buy a robot for my house, but Astro was one of those things that I desperately want. As you guys can see behind me, I have a lot of our devices sitting here. I think at some point in this room, I have one of every device we've made, at least Echo sized.
We'd love that in Astro. They're so cute and funny.
They are.
I just would love to. I don't even know like if it would be super useful because my office is downstairs, so maybe just rolling back and forth from the kitchen to my office is as much as it would do, but it would still be fun.
Yeah, another question that came in from Brian Tarbox, and I know he's deep into the smart home stuff like I am. Like he said, he has 18 Echo Dots in his house. One of the other commands that seems to be missing today is the ability where you have a routine or something set up that says, hey, I want this light on my porch to turn on at 10 p.m. every day. But today, just for one time, I want to be able to talk to my devices and say, I want you to delay that for 2 hours. I want to put off that thing to another time. I mean, that plays into the syntax of what a smart home skill can do and how it controls its individual devices. Because I know we don't talk about roadmap or future features or anything like that. I won't put you guys on the spot for those things. But are we looking to expand how we can think about communicating with smart home devices to handle those kinds of odder edge cases? Because like turn on the light, turn off the light, those make total sense. But don't do a thing that I've told you to do every day is a trickier kind of example, right?
It is trickier, and it's a great idea. Today we handle things like turn on the lights at 10 p.m. So you can do kind of a one-time action that way with your voice. But those more complex actions that require you to make a determination in terms of what to do with the future activities, that's certainly an interesting one.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Another Abratabia on Twitch said, I'm having a hard time finding the answer to this question. Is there a way to test an Alexa web game skill? So I think they're talking about the web API for games. This is a way to host your HTML-based games in an Alexa skill on screens like this. Is there a way for me to test it while it's in the development stage, like open the actual web game on a device or a simulator? So I don't know off the top of my head how this gets handled in the simulator. Although I would expect it to work, I'm not positive on that. But you should be able to run it on a device. And the thing that I will tell you, Abra, is that when you build your web API for games skill, you should still be able to go into the testing console and turn testing to development. But there's a couple of hurdles you kind of got to get through here. So when you build your skill, you build it in a developer account that you've logged into with some Amazon account, right? And you also have devices in your home that are signed up through some developer account. If they are the same, which is always my recommendation, this is actually a really easy process. You just turn testing on and boom, your skill just works on your devices. But if they're not, if you created separate accounts, there is still a way to do it. And I think I could show this really fast, actually, just to demonstrate. Let me see if I can go get this on my screen properly before I start sharing. Of course, I have to enter a one-time code. Give me one moment. I will actually demonstrate this for you guys.
Yeah, the simulator doesn't handle web interface, I think, because it's not using the web API. It's just using the regular Alexa.
Right. Okay, so if I go to, and I know you can't see my screen yet. I'm getting there. Okay, so let me share my screen just really quickly here. And we'll talk about how this works. So I think we're going to want this one.
And by the way, if you're new to office hours, we do have our developer team in the background. So if there's any question we have a hard time answering during office hours, we can usually catch up with you later. We can always join our Slack as well. Yeah,
Slack is something that I will show off in just a second. So if you go to developer.amazon.com, you can go into your account settings. And in here, if this is only for the times where you want a different developer account to be able to access your skill before you've published it, you can actually come into the developer settings. You can go to user permissions. And what you can do here is actually add additional users to your skill, or not to your skill, I'm sorry, to your entire account. And this is the important thing to remember, is that when you grant them access like this, they have access to everything that's inside your developer account with a lot of permissions. So this means that they can modify your skills, delete your skills, change anything that they want to change. And so it's really important that you trust the people that you're giving access to. In most cases, I see people use this for a separate account for themselves. Or if you're building a skill for a customer, you would have them grant you access so that you could go in and build their skill for you. And then when you're done, you can change that. And what's nice about this is that you can then say, I want to change which user I'm currently behaving as. And when you do this, you get this nice list of other accounts that you could log in as. And so I've done this for this voice developer skill that I've been working on for a while. I have an Amazon Alexa account that I've set up, and that's how I can choose that. And then when I log in, I only see the skills that that user has in their account. So that's my recommendation. If those two accounts aren't the same, that's how you would go about doing that. All right, let's turn off sharing. There we go. And get back to our smart home friends, because I see a few other questions.
Oh, and there's one more answer to that question too. There also is a separate tool for testing Web API app. It's Web API App Tester. I think it's actually in the Fire TV documentation, but that might be the right track to be searching on for that.
Yeah, if you can find that link, that would be super helpful to share.
I will look for it.
Got it. All right. Well, it looks like Abra has headed in that direction, and it says her Echo Shows just can't. His account can't open the skill even though it's enabled. So hopefully that maybe that tool will let you do that. Data Voice wants to know if you can do a beta of a Web API skill. I have not built a Web API skill myself, but Amanda, I know you have a pretty rich gaming background, and so this may be something you've dove into already. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it.
I don't know if they have the beta open for that. No, that's a good question though, so we'll follow up on it.
Okay, good.
I haven't actually developed my Web API skill yet. It's like one of those to-do things on my
right. I have a long checklist of things I want to do, and you can only do so many.
I honestly spent 2 hours designing stuff this morning.
Right.
Separate.
Nice. So Brittany, outside of the API, is there any other interesting things that folks that are building hardware should know about?
I mean, there's always a lot of new and interesting things, but I think when it comes to the APIs, I think there's a lot of capabilities out there that give you a lot of flexibility. I think what you mentioned earlier in terms of the recipes for developers to kind of think outside the box of maybe what's already been done. So we have other APIs like the mode controller API, which actually has been in existence for quite a while, but I would say has a lot of interesting uses where I suspect the stove control is probably using that mode controller API. I'm going to have to go and take a look, but I think that's where there's a lot of opportunities to think outside the box. I think Shrung's suggestion that developers work with our solutions team. Excuse me, my earbud came out. That developers work with our solutions teams is a good one, and just thinking about how you can create something unique for your device, I think is really important. So those would be a couple of things that I would bring up.
Cool. All right, and how about you, Shrung? Is there anything else that stands out to you as being notable or interesting that you want to make sure our audience hears?
I don't know if it's interesting, but a question that we get a lot is if Matter, which is the new buzzword in smart home, if Matter means that a device is compatible with Google and Apple and Alexa, why do we need your certification? Why is this different? Why is this an additional hoop that we've got to jump through? And, whoops. And I can touch upon that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. So you were talking about Matter and how developers have asked the question, why do I need a Works with Alexa certification if I'm already Matter certified? Is that the question?
Yes, absolutely. And what we say is the fundamental difference in Matter testing and Works with Alexa certification is Matter inspects whether the engineering implementation is aligned with the guidelines that the CSA sort of puts out there. So they care about engineering. So we look at it as Matter is very similar to unit testing versus Alexa, Works with Alexa, which is more aligned with end-to-end testing. And I hope that's what reference developers get. So for Works with Alexa, for instance, we uh, only care about the end customer experience. We don't care about how you build it. We don't care about how you implement it. We only care whether or not it's integrated with Alexa. And we may fail the certification for a number of reasons. Either the skill doesn't work, the hardware is faulty, some problem with the implementation, or the device maker has implemented the CX in a way that is not consistent with the rest of the smart home experience. So there's the number of reasons why we won't certify those products, but Matter would not find an issue with that. So it's just very different certifications. And anecdotally speaking, we've actually certified several Matter devices. And I can tell you from experience that there are issues with CX for Matter devices. They fail a lot of our test cases. So the Works with Alexa certification is even more important now than it has ever been, because Matter is in its infancy, because it's not fleshed out completely.
Got it. That makes sense. I mean, I think the promise of Matter is incredibly exciting, but I'm with you. I think that you want to make sure that these things are working in a way that makes a good customer experience as well, and that's where Works with Alexa kind of overlays on top of that. It's really smart. This has been eye-opening for me. I don't spend a ton of time thinking about our hardware offerings and how programs like Work with Alexa work. And I know I have one other question for you that I think would be an interesting thing to share with folks, because Works with Alexa isn't our only certification, correct?
That's right.
We have a few more. Offer some clarification to our audience about what the different kinds of certifications are, because I know there's Works with Alexa, there's a few others as well. Maybe you can shed some insight on that for us.
Yeah, I'll talk about the big ones. There are more. There's Works with Alexa. There's frustration-free setup. That's a certification completely parallel to Works with Alexa, where we're essentially making sure. So setup is the most challenging part of any, like, owning a smart home device, right? And Amazon wants to ensure that sort of process is as smooth as possible. You can combine Works with Alexa and frustration-free setup, implement both, and get a third certification called Certified for Humans. That's a Jeff Bezos idea. He wanted his immersion circulator to just work, and it didn't work. And he's like, okay, why is this not working? And so he thought of this new certification where the setup is as seamless as possible, and it really does work with Alexa. There's other certifications like Alexa built-in, which is for devices that implement Alexa within the device, as opposed to the device requiring a Alexa or a Dot or an Echo to sort of control the device.
Yeah.
So Alexa built-in would be for like I think they work with auto a lot. So, for instance, the Lexus car implementing the Echo within sort of the console. So that would be Alexa built-in certified.
Yeah, this is another example, which I think is a category that has a lot of Alexa built-in, right?
That's correct.
This is a really nice set of headphones, and these have Alexa built-in. It's on the box when you buy it, and it allows you to talk directly to Alexa through your headphones, which is super awesome.
Do you want to quickly take a look at some of the other chat queries here?
Oh, yeah.
Brian Tarbox asked, any possible integration with Apple CarPlay or Android CarPlay? I'm not familiar with those two. I don't think that's a device question, though.
Yeah. I mean, the challenge with auto stuff is that you either have our Alexa built into the car, which I don't know, is that Alexa built in for cars as well?
It is, and yeah, they're working with Mercedes and Lexus that I know of. I'm sure they've got other devices they're working with. Yep. So
when we think about things like CarPlay and Android, I don't know if Android's is called CarPlay. And Android has I can't remember what theirs is called.
Android Auto.
Yeah, maybe it's Android Auto. Mm-hmm. But between those two, that is now we're talking about accessing apps on your actual phone, and so excuse me. That gets a little more complicated, right? Because in the same way that you can't replace the voice assistant on your phone with the voice assistant of your choice, at least not today. The same would apply here. And by the way, Amanda, if you are not using, I don't know what kind of phone you have, but if you're not using one of those integrated systems for either your Android or your iOS device in your car, it's an entirely different driving experience.
I bet.
Being able to use your phone on the display that's in your car.
No, mine doesn't do that.
It's powerful.
That sounds really useful.
I would have a hard time going back. And in fact, I was, I'm an iOS user, and I was furious when I found out that most cars, if you buy it and it has something like CarPlay built in, you have to plug your phone in. And so you have the USB port, then you have a wire that's hanging over your car or wherever. And I found out that there is, in fact, a wireless version of CarPlay where you can just leave your phone in your pocket. But most car manufacturers don't offer that because the hardware is more expensive.
Yeah.
And so what they do instead is the car manufacturer is forcing me to use the wire. It's not the Apple integration or the Android integration or anything like that. And so
I'll have to check that out next time I get a new car.
For sure. I was in Hawaii and we rented it was a huge Suburban. And I tried to connect my phone and it's like, oh, we can do this wirelessly. And I was like, shut the front door. That is amazing. And so I think as we continue to look at how Alexa starts to influence the automotive space as well, I think that we may see more of that kind of influence where we can do more things in a more seamless way, whether that's talking to your phone or your smart home devices or whatever that may be.
My phone does do the driving mode when I start the car, so it knows it's hooked into a car at least.
Good.
Habuma asks, I like this question. He can't help but notice that the new Magic Band Plus from Disney has a Works with Alexa on it. Is that a sneak preview of things to come?
Yeah, we're working on a few exciting things. We can't really share a lot, but yeah.
Cool. Well, it says Works with Alexa on the packaging for the Magic Band Plus. My family and I are going to Disneyland in June. And so we've talked about whether or not we're going to do the Magic Bands. I guess they're not as necessary at Disneyland as they are in Disney World, but
yeah, World, you really want them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. James Poulter has a deep, meaningful question. He wants to know what the policy stance is at the moment on building skills that use things like GPT or other LLMs as a backend to fulfill slots and provide content. So what I'll tell you is that I have seen skills that have gotten through certification using this model, but I would recommend that you make sure that you're building something that is very specific and refined about what it is you're trying to do with external LLMs and things like GPT, because what we don't want to see, and I think what our certification team is going to try to avoid, is hundreds and hundreds of skills that are all just generic chat GPT interfaces or something like that. So if you have an application that makes sense for tailoring some LLM to provide a good experience for your users and isn't just a generic chatbot, for example, I don't think that you'll have much trouble. But keep that in mind. I wouldn't just try to build something that is generic to just be the GPT interface. That'll be trickier for you. There was another question that came in here that I thought was kind of interesting. Brian Tarbox mentioned this, and I think it was because my device kept going off for us. He would love the ability, especially with any kind of smart speaker or Echo or whatever, to be able to say, Alexa, stop listening for 1 hour. See if any of my other devices go off.
It didn't work. It doesn't do anything.
That's a really clever thought, because while I know, it's really challenging to tell the device to mute itself, and you can't do that today. There are times where I just want to mute the device by telling it to stop listening for a bit. And so like an auto expiring timer, stop listening for half an hour or whatever, that would be pretty cool. Until your kid says, stop listening for 300 years. Then maybe it's not. So Dana Voice says that there's already been some details shared about the Magic Band. I'm only reading what Dana has shared, so I'm not confirming or denying any of this. I'm just sharing what Dana has shared here in the chat, that using the Magic Band as a button for games inside the theme parks and stuff. That sounds pretty fun.
Cool. Okay.
All right. And James says he's thinking about using LLMs to create content for each response so they don't have to cycle through scripts. Yeah, James, I have done the same. I've actually used several different LLMs to be able to pull, like, I have a sentence that I want to be able to say inside my skill, and I'll go to an LLM and say, give me 15 variations of this sentence. And they all say and mean the same thing, but they sound different, so that as the user's working through the skill, they don't hear the same words in the same order every single time. And that's gone a long way in making my skill feel more like a conversation than just a robot that I'm talking to trying to get to the next task.
Yeah, if you're doing that though, you might consider actually putting what dialogue you generated back into your skill code versus hitting the API, because I think it would be a lot faster in terms of latency for your user.
Completely agree. That is what I'm doing. I have a database of speech, and I just pull all of that stuff into there. Well, we are getting very short on time. Sharang and Brittany, you guys have been fantastic. I think,
thanks so much.
As you see from not only the chat, but from Amanda and I, like, we start to get our brains spinning about some of the cool things that you guys are working on and talking about. So we only have a couple of minutes left. Is there any last thoughts you want to leave anyone with? Is there a call to action that maybe would be useful for people to check out before we end here?
Yeah, sure. I'd say just go check out the Simple Event Source API. Like I said, it gives you the ability to expand what your device can do. And we know that customers that use routines are 4 times more engaged. So I think when it comes to like bringing your device into the daily lives of your customers, I think it's a really big game changer. So check it out.
That's excellent. All right. Well, I want to thank you.
Can I get you to plug the Slack one more time too for anybody's questions that didn't get answered today? Let's get that on the board one more time.
Go ahead, sing the praises of Slack, because I think it's awesome.
If you have a deeper question or you wanted to get in a conversation with our team, we have a lot of folks from Alexa on the chat. You can join the Slack. It's a community that's ever growing, and we're happy to hear from you. We try to get, and if one of our people can't respond, sometimes somebody else in the community has the answer, because we're all kind of in this together. So thank you. Yeah.
Very, very much. And that's actually a good question for both of you. I don't know if you're already in our community Slack. Is that something you guys have been in already, Sharang and Brittany?
I'm going to join now.
All right. I highly recommend it. We actually have channels dedicated.
I was going to say, we have a smart home channel.
There's a smart home channel. There's a Matter channel. And there's some good conversations happening there amongst people that want to talk about those things. I will also tell you both that if there's a channel that doesn't exist and you'd like to see it, please reach out to me, and I'd be happy to get that set up so that people can have those kinds of conversations. But most of the talking happens in our general channel, and then you'll see things kind of splinter off when it becomes deeper or more involved. But yeah, there's lots and lots of good stuff in there. All right. Well, with that, Amanda, I think we're going to put a bow on this one. This is
thanks so much.
Another good office hours, though, and I want to thank everybody that's watching for your questions and your participation. It goes a long way in making this show valuable for others. You're asking the questions that others are thinking, and it really is helpful in making some really great content here with everyone. So thank you for that. And for Sharang and Brittany, thank you for bringing your expertise. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to come talk with all of us about the things that you're working on.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to call it a day. We will be back again next week. We're here every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific. And so that varies depending on what time zone you're in, as Gavin mentioned, from the UK. But we look forward to seeing all of you, and I hope you have a great week. We'll see you very soon. Take care, everyone.